At just 21, both Nathan Green and Kurt Lind are already among the country's leading amateurs. The pair form the backbone of the New South Wales under-23 side. On Sunday, they crossed the Tasman for the annual clash against New Zealand provincial teams. Last year, New South Wales missed the title by just one shot.
It's a bit of rivalry between a couple of Australian sides ago, Queensland and Victoria, and there's a lot of good sides in New Zealand too, so it's fairly competitive.
1996 was a good year personally for Nathan Green. It started in New Zealand, winning the individual section of the team's title. He backed up to win the New Zealand Under-23 Championship. He's hoping for a repeat performance.
I had a good trip last year and just hopefully go there and enjoy it again, and let's see how we go.
Kurt Lind is also coming off a successful 1996 which included victory in the North Coast Open, although his eyes are now fixed on the Lake Macquarie Open following the New Zealand trip.
We treat it as kind of a warm-up for the Lake Macquarie. That's how I treat it myself. So it's good to play well, but if I don't, that's just a warm-up.
Phil Hind, NBN News.
The Lismore entourage was on the golf course today. The putting from Sean Mortimer left a lot to be desired, but the speedster is doing much better with his driving and is one of the favourites for the modified title on Saturday.
We're hoping that we have the run of luck that we shared on Tuesday night, so although we start down the back of the grid on Saturday night, which is a bit of a concern.
It was a fiery opening to the qualifying heats of the Australian Championships on Tuesday. Ex-Australian champion Steve Robinson, also from Lismore, finished on top, but breathing down his neck will be national champion Stuart Hearn.
He's got the will to win. Everyone else has got that will to win too. This is my last year of racing, and what better way to go out and to get back to the ultimate in speedway racing, number one.
There'll be one heat tomorrow night with the top 6 drivers to go through to the feature 30-lap final. And also on the program, round 5 of the Super Sedan Series. After finishing their test commitments against the Americans, Top Guns John Pine and John Brown will lead the way, with the winner set to clinch the series lead. Lismore drivers were expected to dominate last night. They did. Former national champion Steve Robinson grabbed an early lead from fellow club members Sean Mortimer, Stuart Hearn and Ian Vickery, the lead changing throughout. Mortimer on top, but with only 3 laps to go, he went wide and Robinson seized the gap. The Lismore speedsters duelled in the closing stages, but Robinson won the checkered flag to reclaim the Australian title. Newcastle sprinter Paul Henderson has shown his blistering form in the Port Macquarie gift meet. In the 70-metre backmarkers invitational event, the Olympian was simply too powerful. Next on the agenda, a clash with the legendary Carl Lewis in the Optus Grand Prix later this month.
I'm looking forward towards racing against Carl. It'll be my first time. It'll be excellent. I'm really looking forward to it. Something I've waited a lifetime to do.
Henderson's handicap was too great in the feature Port Gift. Fellow Newcastle Olympian Natalie Ward has hit a home run to help New South Wales to a 5-3 victory over Victoria in the National Women's Softball Championships in Melbourne. Not a bad night for the Hunter Eagles. After winning the first game against the Melbourne Reds 2-1, they lost the second 6-4, the series to the Reds 3-1. Success for Belmont Sailors at the national 16-foot titles in Queensland. Danny Anderson's Light Ice won the event from his father John in Bradville Garages. And a video featuring some of the country's hottest motorcyclists has been released. Horizontal was filmed in and around the Hunter and features a number of local stars, including Danny Ham and Chad Reed. More than 900 competitors from across the state competed in the competition, making it the biggest meet in the event's history. After winning the title for 11 consecutive years, BHP Hunter again left the field behind. Despite losing several senior swimmers to other clubs, BHP was never headed after the first session. The club amassed more than 2,500 points and had 5 swimmers set new country records. Gosford finished second, Ballina third. A Lake Macquarie angler has recorded the biggest catch in the annual Golden Lure fishing tournament at Port Macquarie. A tiger shark weighing close to 400 kilograms was hauled onto the scales on the weekend. Trent Vischer caught the monster on a 15-kilogram line aboard the boat Wild Child. The crew of 4 won the overall champion boat capture. Mullet was again the most popular fish over the 6-day tournament. Locals dominated catches in the women's division. Tammy Kirkby took the catch and release title, while Vivian Lacey was named overall champion. In the juniors, Michael Young of the Hastings Club won the tag and release, while Ben West from the Great Lakes was overall champion. $5,834 was the official crowd of breakers on Friday, the biggest attendance for a Newcastle-Adelaide City match, but local Supremo John Kosmina thinks there are thousands of soccer supporters still sitting at home.
They're not all dead or have left Newcastle, so I'd like to see them come out and support us in the second round.
The National Soccer League is now in recess for the Four Nations series, and Kosmina is taking time to reflect. The first half of the competition has yielded 8 draws. Already that's 3 more than what they scored from the 33 matches last season. But if the Breakers are to make the top 6 in this year's final series, Kosmina knows his side must win more matches, especially those against the lowly teams like Canberra, Collingwood and Gippsland.
Well, they're teams that we have to knock off in the second round, and the big name teams are your UTSs, your Marconis and your Brisbane Strikers, those sorts of teams. We've got them at home this round, we have to win at home. Simple as that.
And on the recruitment front, talks will be held in the break with former Socceroo David Mitchell.
If Mitch was available and the price is right, I'd certainly recommend to the board that they consider it.
Downstairs in A block, 9 new classrooms have been rebuilt. Computer, general and special education rooms representing the start of the second stage of the school's $4 million upgrade. While the region's teachers headed back to staff rooms today, preparing for this week's onslaught when around 84,000 students return to school. Vanessa Spark, NBN News.
This car park is being touted as the site for Newcastle's premier hotel. The Wharf Road development overlooking the harbour will see construction of an 8-storey, 250-room complex costing $40 million. The hotel will be aimed at the 4-star market. Those behind the project say the city isn't ready for a 5-star hotel yet.
The 5-star hotel would be excessive and not in the best interest of families and the type of people who we would want to encourage to be accommodated there.
Along with restaurants and bars, the hotel will also include a convention centre capable of entertaining up to 600 guests. The project is expected to generate hundreds of jobs during construction and 150 permanent staff once completed. At this stage, the hotel operator remains a guarded secret, but is said to be a major player in the Australian market.
It will be announced in a couple of months. He wants to announce it because it's part of a major announcement in the development of the hotel chain in this country.
Plans for the hotel show the neighbouring nightclub will be retained, but Centenary Road will be closed and traffic around the site will have to be redirected. A development application for the project was today submitted to the Newcastle Council. The developer hopes to begin construction either late this year or early 1998, with completion in time for the Sydney Olympics. Phil Hind, NBN News.
The cows were dancing, prancing and talking in Newcastle, much to the delight of the young audience. They are the stars of a school holiday show called Bouncing Barry and the Cow Circus. Staged by the Footlights Theatre and the Hunter Valley Theatre Company, the show tells the tale of Barry, an unhappy boarding school student who runs away in search of adventure. On his travels, he finds a circus operated by a family of cows and under threat from poachers who want to send the animals to market. Barry sets out to save the cows, receiving plenty of advice from the children on how to catch the poachers. Emma Siossian, NBN News.
For 3 days, 100 top science and maths students from schools across the north of the state are receiving a taste of life as engineering students. Now into its second year, the university workshop aims to address the nationwide slide in engineering enrolments. One encouraging sign, a third of the students at the workshop are girls.
Currently, perhaps 10% of our enrolment is female, and there's no reason at all why that shouldn't be much higher, and that's what we're trying to do at the moment.
One potential obstacle to increasing enrolments is a federal government hike in HECS fees for engineering degrees. It's a move the Institution of Engineers believes is short-sighted.
At the moment, Australia's importing probably about 2,000 engineers a year from overseas, so there is a real demand for engineers.
The workshop appears to be having the desired effect. Of the 100 who attended last year, more than 30 nominated engineering as their first university preference. For those attending this workshop, it's been a real eye-opener.
So we went on excursions to site visits, and that was a great experience, I think, to actually see what it's like in the real world.
For these students, a final decision will depend on the HSC, but the university is giving them plenty to think about.
The job prospects are excellent, the money on graduation is excellent, and it's a very satisfying profession.
Phil Hind, NBN News.
The debate over brothels is nearly as old as the profession itself. But business leaders are saying enough is enough, following the approval of 5 establishments since the state government made them legal. The latest outcry has been prompted by 2 more proposals for brothels and an application for a methadone clinic in the West End.
Well, Honeysuckle's a $500 million project over the next few years. Now, are residents going to be attracted to our city when they know that they're going to be up against a red light district?
There's been a call for an immediate moratorium on all proposals for brothels in the West End, pending public consultation over the issue. A challenge has also been issued to Newcastle's Lord Mayor.
Well, Lord Mayor, we'd like you to come down here, have a walk and a talk amongst all the different residents and the businesses within the City West precinct.
The Lord Mayor is on leave and unavailable to answer the challenge. The Department of Development at Newcastle Council has already recommended one proposal be approved. No decision has been made on the second application. But business leaders say they won't give up with the ban on any more brothels, as it's just the start of a campaign to clean up the West End. Business leaders and police have organised a safety patrol along the West End this Saturday. It's considered the first step towards a radical shake-up of security in the area, which could include surveillance by closed-circuit TV. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Recent illness and the chancy, nervous income of a poet prevented Les Murray from attending the presentation ceremony. He prefers the rural atmosphere of his 16 hectares at Bunya anyway. And while the $10,000 prize is handy, there's much more to the win for him than that.
What satisfies a writer most of all is to be appreciated amongst poetry readers and colleagues.
It was the 58-year-old's collection of verse subhuman redneck poems which was the unanimous choice of a panel of London publishers. It contains a variety of works, with Les Murray saying his range of subject matter is limitless.
I still can't see the edge of them. I'm always finding new things to write about, new angles, you know. And you often wonder where a thing will fit. You know, you've got an idea and you keep fitting it in various places until you finally find the right match. You know, it works in that poem. It wouldn't have worked in another one.
He began the book, one of 10 he's had published 4 years ago, in an effort to cure himself of clinical depression, which Les says he'd suffered on and off since the age of 8.
In this last book, I was concerned to fight a long-lasting depressive illness I'd had, and dig out what the contents of it were, you know, and what was making me ill.
So what of the work itself? One of his favourites is Dreambabwe.
Streaming, a hippo surfaces like the head of someone lifting with still entranced eyes from a lake of stanzas.
Day 3 of the inquiry into the Durrally coal mine proposal near Stroud heard submissions from 5 government departments, Great Lakes Council and various community groups. The issue of greatest concern and controversy surrounds the wastewater management system proposed by the mining company CIM Resources. Originally, the company planned to discharge dirty water into the pristine Mammy Johnson's River. But after a public uproar, the plans changed to irrigating the dirty water onto nearby land instead. On day 1 of the inquiry, those plans were amended yet again, this time combining the 2 systems. Concerned residents and green groups claim the goalposts have been unfairly moved at the last minute.
The problem now arises is that most of the information as far as water management is concerned is irrelevant, and there is a new game. We feel we haven't been given anywhere near enough time.
In order to discharge into the river, a water licence is required. In the Cooroo Mammy Johnson's catchment area, new licence applications are prohibited, but the Department of Land and Water Conservation has granted CIM Resources an exemption so it can apply for a licence, a move which has outraged residents.
We feel that this may be an achievement of water usage that nobody else is going to be allowed to have.
Only the Department of Mineral Resources supported the proposal outright, with the 4 other departments reserving their recommendations until more information is received. The first sitting of the inquiry winds up tomorrow. Simone Cobb, NBN News. After numerous changes to the plans, the Meridian Retirement Resort proposal in Olbar was finally given the green light by Taree Council last night. Controversy has surrounded the application. The overwhelming majority of submissions opposed the beachfront development, saying it would damage the dual system on Olbar Beach and devalue neighbouring homes. Angered by the decision, residents today claimed Council had ignored the wishes of the majority.
I'm very disgusted with Council. There was 205 submissions against and only 3 for, and I think Council should listen to the people.
The $10 million resort includes 43 self-contained units, swimming pool and community facilities on the 1.3 hectare site. Council knocked back the original application last year because it crossed the 100-year coastal impact line.
We were advised some months ago from Land and Water Conservation that we could put the hazard line closer to the coast.
Councillor Tuck says all submissions were carefully considered by Council, but after the plans complied with the 100-year line, there was no reason to refuse the development. Simone Cobb, NBN News.
Bob Skelton's been writing poems almost as long as he's been associated with the land, a 50-year liaison that's produced hundreds of yard-side yarns. But it's a tale about his special relationship with 10-year-old Striker, the big old grey horse, which he enjoys telling most.
Now here is the legend of me big old grey horse, once a true champion of the Hawkesbury race course, bred in New Zealand in a climate so cold, raced here under the name of Strike Oil, I'm told.
Affectionately known as the Minmi Magster, Bob has won the Don Kneebone Award from the Mountain Cattlemen's Association for telling this story.
I galloped out over the hot smouldering earth. A dry westerly wind howled hot in our face, but the big game grey never slowed in his pace.
Bob's inspiration comes from the characters and the tales they tell around Minmi, stories which rival the infamous bush tales from the Snowy Mountains.
A lot of things happen in these rip-roaring mining towns, so there's plenty to write about.
And while there's still people to listen, Bob will keep on reciting.
So I'll never get rid of the old horse, I declare, for these days he matches the colour of me own grey hair.
Bob Skelton's been writing poems almost as long as he's been associated with the land, a 50-year liaison that's produced hundreds of yard-side yarns. But it's a tale about his special relationship with 10-year-old Striker, the big old grey horse, which he enjoys telling most.
Now here is the legend of me big old grey horse, once a true champion of the Hawkesbury race course, bred in New Zealand in a climate so cold, raced here under the name of Strike Oil, I'm told.
Affectionately known as the Minmi Magster, Bob has won the Don Kneebone Award from the Mountain Cattlemen's Association for telling this story.
I galloped out over the hot smouldering earth. A dry westerly wind howled hot in our face, but the big game grey never slowed in his pace.
Bob's inspiration comes from the characters and the tales they tell around Minmi, stories which rival the infamous bush tales from the Snowy Mountains.
A lot of things happen in these rip-roaring mining towns, so there's plenty to write about.
And while there's still people to listen, Bob will keep on reciting.
I'll stable and groom him and feed him up well. And when my name is called, why, I'll ride him to hell.
Sydney has suffered the Marathon Stadium Blues before. In their first battle this season, the Eagles won one and nearly a second for a near-series victory. But with Sydney sky high on the ladder in second position, few expected them to be troubled again by the ABL cellar dwellers. The visitors were doing plenty of running in the early innings, but unfortunately for them, most of it was back to the dugout. The Eagles were proving no easy beats. Down one after a Blues run in the opening inning, Hunter fought back to make the visitors work for everything. A number of big efforts between bases were matched with similar performances in the field. But runs had dried up, tight pitching from both sides, keeping the score at 1-0 until a 2-run home run by Chris Bradley in the 7th set up a 3-1 upset victory. The series concludes tonight with 2 7-inning games.
After months of busy harvesting in the state's north, this season's bumper wheat crop is moving into Newcastle. 2 million tonnes will pass through the grain loading operations within the next few months, a quarter of the state's entire wheat production. Workers are moving quickly, aiming to load 3 ships each week for overseas destinations. Despite a marginal slump in prices, GrainCorp is confident that quality wheat will fetch good money on the world market. This Durham wheat is selling for $240 a tonne, $80 more than standard grain. Prices are expected to pick up by $5 to $10 a tonne during the next few months because of weather damage to wheat crops across America. Vanessa Spark, NBN News.
With a 3-1 surprise victory on Friday under their belts, the Eagles needed to win only 1 game to take the series, but a run drought kept the match on level terms. Both sides had chances to go ahead with runners continually on base, but getting them home was proving difficult, and after the allocated 7 innings, it was still 0-0. The match went to the 12th before the Eagles scored to win the series. The locals lost the second, but still managed to dent the Blues' premiership campaign. The build-up to the Lake Macquarie Amateur Golf Open has started. A full field made the most of ideal conditions in the Pro-Am at Belmont this afternoon. Among the starters today, more than a dozen past winners of the championships. The first round of the 72-hole tournament tees off on Friday. And they may be officially in recess thanks to the Four Nations series, but the Newcastle Breakers were given no let-up this afternoon by New South Wales State League side, the Adamstown Rosebuds. In a friendly match at Breakers Stadium to conclude the Gala Fun Day, both sides did their best to entertain. With the day and 8 of the Gretley appeal, the result was unimportant, but for the record, the Breakers won comfortably.
Coal production costs in Germany are running at about 4 times the world average, but that country subsidises its industry by a staggering $9 billion annually, enough money to buy the entire Australian industry. But political and economic pressure could see that subsidy halved over the next few years, opening up further export opportunities for Australian mines, which currently sell only 250,000 tonnes to Germany.
In the coking coal area, we're one of a handful of producers of high quality coking coal, and I'm talking now about Australia generally, not just Hunter. So we'd expect to get a slice of that sort of market if it opens up.
Competition in the steaming coal market, mainly used for electricity production, is far more intense, and producers closer to Europe, such as South Africa, Colombia and the United States, may outcompete us.
But of course that'll take production or supply out of the Southeast Asian market, so incidentally or indirectly it could help our position in the Southeast Asian market. So either way, I think it's good news for us.
The mining union in Australia is also aware of the changing situation in Germany and says it's keeping in touch with its counterpart there in the hope that further export market opportunities will be created.
Anthony Stewart was relaxing with his mother Jill today and the city's media. Newcastle's latest hero has been inundated with support after those 3 magical balls at the MCG.
Steve Orr actually said to me out in the middle, it was a bit of a lull there, after it had happened, and Steve sort of walked past me. He said, "Mate, you might have just changed your life."
Stewart's 5-wicket haul thrust the paceman into test calculations, but unfortunately for him, the job has been given to fellow bowler Andy Bickle.
Well, it didn't sort of get my hopes up too high, you know, because you're only going to prepare yourself for a pretty big fall if you think, you know, you're going to be a certainty for anything.
Stewart returns to Sydney on Wednesday for training with New South Wales in the lead-up to the Shield match against South Australia.
So hopefully I can keep taking wickets, and there's a tour to South Africa, I think, leaves on the 9th of February. So, you know, possibly if I keep taking wickets, I'm going to give myself a chance of being on that tour.
And then there's the Ashes Tour. In August last year, he said that was his ambition for the season, and the 27-year-old almost has a foot on the plane.
I don't want to have my whole summer just hinge on that day in Melbourne. There's still a lot of cricket left in this season, and hopefully I can keep improving.
Hoping to be the next Australian star, hundreds of young cricketers had a clinic at the university. In conjunction with the uni's trainee PE teachers, more than 200 boys and girls are honing their skills in a 3-day development camp. And trying to bring some respectability back into English cricket, a touring Pommy team has started the Hunter leg of its Australian tour. The Club Cricket Conference met the city and suburban side today in Newcastle, the tourists scoring 201 off their 50 overs. The CCC started well with the ball. They play the Newcastle Cavaliers at the #1 sports ground tomorrow.
On December 11, Singleton was battered for 30 minutes by hail the size of cricket balls, damaging buildings and cars. Among the worst hit, Singleton District Hospital. Its roof and windows were destroyed and torrential rain flooded through the building. 6 weeks later, major repairs are continuing. The roof and windows have been replaced, but there is still extensive work to be done inside the building. Hunter Area Health Service Chief Dr Tim Smythe is just back from a 2-month holiday. This was his first look at the damage.
I'm just staggered by the amount of damage from 15 minutes of hail, but also delighted to see the great work that the staff have done, and it's good to see the hospital on the way to coming back online.
In addition to work covered by insurance, the health service is spending another $200,000 on improvements, including updated fire detection equipment. The hospital's emergency department has been reopened, and it is also providing some X-ray and pathology services. Meanwhile, many staff are taking long service or annual leave. The hospital is expected to reopen at the end of February. Until then, patients will continue to be sent to other areas, such as Cessnock and Maitland, for treatment.
Anyone that has any concern or any doubt, we ask them to contact the hospital, and we can advise them what they should do.
Emma Ossian, NBN News.
Pint-sized busker Christy Brady isn't exactly singing for a supper. She's singing so she can pursue a musical career and continue her charity work. But the area has proven so popular that buskers are turning up the volume to outdo each other.
Like, I wasn't going to be stupid and turn my music up so I could blast them out. But yeah, I think they're trying to have a competition with me.
12-year-old Christy has a permit to perform. The problem is her competition doesn't. Lake Macquarie Council doesn't have the power to enforce permits, but is now moving to regulate busking in the area. As for Christy, she'll get her money back.
There shouldn't be any attempt at taking any funds from anybody because we can't regulate it. So she will get a refund as far as I'm concerned.
Meanwhile, the buskers were happier at the Shortland Wetlands Centre today, promoting